The clink of silverware stopped. The steam from the turkey she had so carefully basted still curled into the air, but suddenly, the warmth of the room felt suffocating. Blair froze, her eyes darting between her parents and siblings. No one said anything. Not one person defended her, and that silence was louder than the insult itself. For months longer than anyone knew, Blair had been holding the family together in ways they never acknowledged. When her father's hours at work got cut and her mom complained about rising prices, Blair had quietly stepped in. The electricity bill? She paid it. Groceries that stocked the fridge? Her card, every time. The insurance payment they all relied on? Hers again. She even covered the $1,200 her mom insisted was for medical treatment, though Blair later realized it had been for Botox. But she said nothing. She told herself, family helps family, and kept sacrificing, believing and hoping that someday, they'd notice. But here she was, on Thanksgiving, after cooking the entire feast from her own dwindling paycheck, being branded a burden. Her fork trembled in her hand. A leech. She finally whispered. Her father didn't flinch. You live under this roof and contribute nothing. You think cooking a meal makes up for freeloading? His voice carried the kind of certainty that comes from someone who never once questioned his own comfort. Blair's jaw tightened. The irony was bitter. She wanted to scream, to lay bare every bill she'd paid. Every night she'd skipped dinner so her younger siblings could eat more. But instead, she bit back tears and watched as her mother, eyes glued to her plate, murmured, "Maybe it's time you considered moving out, Blair. You're an adult." And that was it. The verdict, delivered, as though she hadn't just drained her bank account to keep their November afloat. That night, after the dishes were washed and the house grew quiet, Blair sat in her room surrounded by receipts, proof of every invisible sacrifice. She could have thrown them on the table earlier, slapped them down as evidence, but she hadn't. Some part of her had still hoped for recognition or for love. But now, staring at the numbers that had bled her dry, something inside her snapped. She wasn't a leech. She was the lifeline, and they had no idea. The next morning, Blair did something she hadn't done in years. She thought about herself. She packed her belongings methodically: a clothes, work laptop, the thrifted furniture she had bought herself. She left the dishes, the couch, the television, of things she had contributed to but no longer wanted tethered to her. Before leaving, she taped a neat stack of receipts to the refrigerator, each marked with a yellow sticky note: groceries, rent, utilities, insurance, medical, or cosmetic. Actually, her last note simply read, "You're welcome." When her parents returned home that evening, Blair was gone. At first, they thought she'd stormed out in a tantrum. But as days turned into weeks, the weight of her absence settled in. The fridge stayed empty. The Wi-Fi was cut off. Late fees piled on bills they hadn't realized Blair had been paying. Thanksgiving leftovers ran out, and suddenly, dinner became cereal or takeout they couldn't afford. It wasn't until the lights flickered off one December evening that her father finally admitted what no one dared say: Blair had been the backbone all along. Meanwhile, Blair found herself in a tiny studio apartment across town. It wasn't glamorous, the heater clanked, and the walls were thinner, but it was hers. For the first time in years, she felt her paycheck belonged to her. She bought fresh flowers for her kitchen counter, cooked small meals just for one, and slept soundly knowing no one would call her a leech again. Her phone buzzed constantly, at first calls from her mother, then her siblings, eventually even her father. Apologies came wrapped in guilt, laced with requests for help. Blair listened, her heart torn between love and the memory of their silence at the table. It would have been easy to slip back into the old role, to rush in and fix everything again. but she didn't. Instead, she met their words with calm resolve. "I'm not your safety net anymore. You'll figure it out like I did." The weeks turned into months, and slowly, Blair's family began to reckon with their neglect. They cut expenses. Her father picked up extra shifts. Her mother took on part-time work instead of cosmetic appointments. It wasn't easy for them, but for the first time, they truly shouldered their own weight. As for Blair, her decision blossomed into something bigger than survival. She started setting goals small at first, saving for a car, applying for a promotion. Eventually, she joined a local women's support group, sharing her story with others who had been silently carrying their families while being dismissed or ridiculed. Every time she spoke, people cried, people nodded, people whispered, "That's me," and with each telling, Blair's shame transformed into strength. Her family never stopped asking her back for holidays, and in time, she did return, but on her terms. She arrived with a dessert she baked herself, not the whole feast. She'd sit at the table as a guest, not a servant. And the first time her father, with tears in his eyes, said, "I'm proud of you, Blair," she didn't flinch. She simply nodded, knowing she had earned those words not through sacrifice, but through courage. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the people who only see your worth once you're gone. And Blair's story wasn't just about leaving, it was about reclaiming herself. Her message, the one she carried into every room she entered after, was simple yet powerful: you are not a leech for loving, for giving, for trying, but you also don't owe your entire self to those who mistake your generosity for weakness. Sometimes, the best way to save your family is to stop saving them, and that Thanksgiving, the one that broke her, became the moment Blair finally found her freedom.